Admiral Park Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the battleship Iron Wake and watched his world burn. The massive viewing screen showed Earth from orbit, and what he saw broke something deep inside him. Bright orange fires spread across every continent. Mushroom clouds rose from where great cities once stood. Seoul, Tokyo, New York, London, Mumbai, all of them gone in flashes of terrible light. The Valari Dominion had come without warning. 12 alien species, united in their fear of humanity's rapid growth, had decided that Earth needed to die. Their massive warships filled the sky like metal locusts. Raining death upon billions of innocent people, Tae-ho gripped the railing so hard his knuckles turned white. His communicator had stopped working 30 minutes ago. The last message from his wife Yuna was still burned into his memory. She had called from their apartment in Seoul, their daughter Somi crying in the background. "Tae-ho, the sky is on fire. What do we do? Where do we go?" He never got to answer. The line went dead. Then Seoul disappeared in a ball of nuclear flame. Around him, his crew worked in desperate silence. Young officers wiped tears from their faces as they tried to coordinate a defense that was already lost. Earth's fleet was powerful, but they had been caught completely unprepared. Half their ships were destroyed in the first hour. The other half fought bravely, but hopelessly against an enemy that outnumbered them 20-1. Captain Kong Do-yeon rushed onto the bridge, his uniform torn and his face covered in smoke and blood. He was only 26 years old, but today he looked ancient. "Admiral Mars Station has fallen. We have lost contact with the Luna bases. We are alone." Tae-ho did not respond immediately. He watched another city vanish on the screen below. Somewhere down there in the hell that Earth had become, 800 million people were still alive. Hiding in basements, running through burning streets, praying for rescue that would never come. "How many ships do we have left?" Tae-ho finally asked. His voice was calm, but Do-yeon could hear the rage hiding beneath it. 17 combat-capable vessels, sir. Maybe 2,000 crew total. Against the combined might of 12 spacefaring civilizations. It was nothing. It was suicide to fight. But Tae-ho remembered Yuna's voice. He remembered Sami's crying. He remembered the promises he made when his daughter was born, that he would always protect her, that he would always keep her safe. He had failed, and someone would pay for that. "Pull back to the asteroid belt," Tae-ho ordered. "All surviving ships. We retreat. We hide. We survive." Do-yeon looked confused. "Sir, we're just going to run. We should fight. We should die gloriously." Tae-ho turned to face the young captain. His eyes were cold and empty like frozen stones. "No. Death is easy. Living is hard, and I want those aliens to suffer for a very long time. We cannot make them suffer if we are dead." The retreat was chaos. Only 11 ships made it to the safety of the asteroid belt. 6 more were destroyed, covering the escape. Thousands of brave men and women died so that a handful could survive. On the Valari flagship, High Commander Vorex watched humanity's defeat with satisfaction. The tall, gray-skinned alien turned to his fellow commanders and smiled with his 4 mouths. "It is done. The human threat is eliminated. Their world is ash. Their fleet is scattered. They will never recover," the other commanders agreed. The Morvani representative, a creature that looked like a walking insect, clicked his mandibles in approval. "The Galactic Council will be pleased. Humanity was growing too fast. They needed to be ... corrected." 3 days later, the Galactic Council held an emergency meeting at their great station in the center of the galaxy. Representatives from over 200 species gathered to discuss what the Valari Dominion had done. Many were uncomfortable. Some were outraged. The humans had been new to the galactic community, yes. They were aggressive and ambitious, yes. But did they deserve extinction? Counselor Brix of the Morvani stood before the assembly. His insect eyes showed no emotion as he spoke. The action taken against Earth was necessary for galactic stability. Humanity's expansion rate was unsustainable. They colonized 12 worlds in just 50 years. At that pace, they would have dominated this quadrant within 2 centuries. "We had no choice." Representative from the Kethany, a peaceful species known for their philosophy, raised an objection. Billions died. Children died. This was not correction. This was genocide. Brix waved one of his many limbs dismissively. Genocide implies intent to destroy. We did not destroy humanity. We simply reduced them. The survivors will learn their place. They will be quiet. They will be small. And the galaxy will be safe. The vote was close, but in the end, the Council ruled that the attack on Earth was regrettable, but justified. No punishment would come to the Valari Dominion. No help would be sent to the survivors. Humanity would be left to die slowly on their ruined world. Back on Earth, General Shin Murray climbed out of a collapsed bunker and looked at the burning sky. She was 52 years old, a veteran of 3 colonial conflicts, and she had never seen anything like this devastation. The air was thick with ash and the screams of the dying, but Murray was not ready to die. She was not ready to accept this fate. Around her, survivors began to emerge from the rubble. Some were soldiers. Some were scientists. Some were ordinary people with nothing left to lose. They looked to her for guidance, for hope, for anything that might give them a reason to keep breathing. Murray picked up a fallen rifle and checked its charge. Still half full. Good. Listen to me, she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. The aliens think we are finished. They think we will crawl into holes and die. They think we are weak. She looked at the faces around her. Burned, bleeding, broken, but not beaten. They made a mistake, Murray continued. They killed our families. They burned our cities. They took everything from us. She raised the rifle toward the sky where enemy ships still circled like vultures. Now we have nothing left to lose. And that makes us the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. A young scientist named Han Juwu stepped forward. Her laboratory had been destroyed. Her colleagues were dead. But her mind, her brilliant, terrible mind, was still working. I have ideas, she said quietly. Weapons they have never seen. Technologies they cannot imagine. If you give me time, I can give you revenge. Murray looked at Ji Woo and saw the same cold fire that burned in her own heart. How much time? 10 years. Maybe less. Murray nodded slowly. 10 years of hiding. 10 years of building. 10 years of waiting. The galaxy thought humanity was dead. They would learn otherwise. The galaxy forgot about Earth quickly. Within a year, the burned planet was just a sad story that parents told their children. Be good, or you will end up like the humans. Within 5 years, most species stopped talking about it entirely. There were trade deals to make, territories to claim, and profits to earn. Who had time to think about a dead world? But Earth was not dead. It was hiding. And it was growing stronger, deep beneath the scorched surface. In tunnels that stretched for hundreds of kilometers, humanity survived. 800 million people had lived through the bombing. Now, 10 years later, that number had grown to almost 2 billion. They lived in underground cities lit by artificial suns. They grew food in massive hydroponic farms. They built factories that never stopped running, and they prepared for war. General Shin Murray stood at the center of the command bunker, looking at a holographic map of the galaxy. She was 62 now, her hair completely gray, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. Around her, officers and scientists worked at their stations, coordinating the greatest secret project in human history. Report, she ordered. Colonel Yoon Seo-jin stepped forward. He was one of the new generation born after the bombing. Raised on stories of alien cruelty, trained from childhood to fight. The Ghost Fleet is ready, General. 47 ships with full stealth capability. They can pass within 100 meters of enemy sensors without detection. Murray nodded. The Ghost Fleet was her proudest achievement. After the bombing, humanity had studied every piece of alien technology they could find. They learned how enemy sensors worked. Then they built ships that were completely invisible to those sensors. The aliens would never see them coming. What about the Reaper Protocol? She asked. Dr. Han Ju-woo looked up from her workstation. 10 years had changed her. The young, hopeful scientist was gone. In her place was something harder and colder. She had poured her grief into her work, and that work was now complete. Ready for deployment. The virus will infect any ship computer system in the galaxy. Once inside, it will shut down life support, weapons, and engines. The crew will die in their sleep. Some of the officers looked uncomfortable. Killing enemies in battle was one thing. Killing them in their sleep was something else. But no one objected. They all remembered what the aliens had done. In the asteroid belt, far from Earth, Captain Kong Do-yan trained the next generation of soldiers. The young man who had once been shocked by the bombing was now a legendary commander. His training camps were brutal. His standards were impossible. And his soldiers were the deadliest warriors humanity had ever produced. Do-yan walked through the training facility, watching recruits fight in zero gravity. They were fast, efficient, and completely ruthless. Good, they would need to be. A young woman named Bei Nari approached him. She was his best student, quick, smart, and completely without mercy. "Captain, when do we fight?" "Soon," Do-yan replied. Very soon, far above them, Admiral Park Tai-ho sat alone in his quarters on the Iron Wake. The ship had been rebuilt and upgraded many times over the past decade. It was now the most powerful warship humanity had ever created. But Tai-ho barely noticed. He was looking at a photograph. Yuna smiled at him from the image, holding baby Somi in her arms. They had taken the picture on Sami's first birthday. It was the happiest day of Tai-ho's life. Now, it was his only source of pain. 10 years had not healed the wound. If anything, it had grown worse. Tai-ho had spent every day of the past decade studying the enemy. He knew the Valari Dominion better than they knew themselves. He knew their supply routes, their military bases, their political weaknesses. He knew which species hated each other. He knew which leaders were corrupt. He knew everything, and he had used that knowledge to create a plan. A terrible, perfect plan. The door opened, and Mireille entered. She looked at the photograph in his hands and said nothing about it. They had known each other too long for empty words. "It's time," she said simply. Tai-ho put the photograph away. When he turned to face her, his eyes were empty. The man who had once loved his wife and daughter, who had once believed in peace and cooperation, was gone. What remained was something else. "Something dangerous? The council station?" he asked. "They're having their annual celebration. All the major species will have representatives there, including Counselor Brix." Tai-ho's expression did not change, but something flickered in his dead eyes. Brix the Morvani who had called. Humanity's extinction regrettable, but justified. Alien who had compared genocide to pest control. "Don't strike the station," Tai-ho said. "Not yet. First, we make them afraid. First, we make them remember." He walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the aliens lived their comfortable lives. They ate expensive food and attended fancy parties, and never thought about the billions they had murdered. They slept peacefully, believing they were safe, that sleep was about to end. "Begin Phase 1, Tai-ho ordered. "Hit the Valari border colonies. Leave no survivors, and make sure they know who did it." Jiwoo had one more project. It was called Project Kindred, and it was so terrible that even Mireille had hesitated to approve it. A biological weapon designed specifically for each council species. It would not kill them. It would do something worse. It would make them unable to have children. One generation and their entire species would cease to exist. "Are you sure about this?" Jiwoo had asked Mireille when presenting the project. "Once we use this, there's no going back. We become the monsters they always said we were." Mireille had thought about it for a long time. She thought about the children who had burned in their schools. She thought about the families who had died holding each other. She thought about the council's vote, the cold bureaucratic decision to let humanity die. "They made us into monsters," she finally replied. "Now they will face what they created." The galaxy did not know it yet, but the next decade would be the bloodiest in its history. And it would begin with a single colony going silent in the darkness of space. 47 invisible ships moved toward their targets. Thousands of soldiers prepared for battle. Scientists checked their weapons one final time, and an old admiral looked at a photograph of his dead family, making a silent promise. The aliens wanted humanity extinct. Instead, they had created something far worse. They had created an enemy with nothing left to lose. The colony of Nexer 7 was a peaceful place. 50,000 Valari lived there, mostly farmers and their families. They grew strange purple crops in massive fields and shipped them across the Dominion. It was quiet work, boring work, but safe work. Nothing bad ever happened on Nex AR-7 until the night the sky went dark. Station Commander Vorix Jr. was the son of the High Commander, but led the attack on Earth. He had been given this easy posting as a reward for his father's success. He spent most of his time drinking expensive wines and complaining about how boring his life was. He was drinking wine when the power went out. "What happened?" he demanded, spilling his drink as he jumped to his feet. His assistant tried to access the computer system. Nothing worked. The screens were dead. The lights were dead. Even the emergency systems were dead. Then the screaming started. Vorix Jr. ran to the window and saw something that froze his blood. Ships were descending from the sky. Ships that had not been there a moment ago. Ships that appeared from nowhere. It's like ghosts materializing from thin air, and they were firing. The attack lasted 37 minutes. When it was over, Nexer 7 was silent. Every building was destroyed. Every Valari was dead. And in the center of the main city, written in burning letters 50 meters tall, was a message. "We remember Sol." 3 days later, a Dominion rescue fleet arrived. They found nothing but ashes and a single repeating broadcast. A human voice, calm and cold, speaking words that would soon become famous across the galaxy. "You taught us that mercy is weakness. You taught us that power is everything. You were excellent teachers. Now watch us apply your lessons." High Commander Vorix received the news on his flagship. For the first time in 10 years, his 4 mouths did not smile. His gray skin turned pale. His hands trembled. His son was dead. His colony was destroyed. And the humans he had thought extinct had returned. "Find them," he ordered. "Find them and destroy them." But finding the Ghost Fleet was impossible. The human ships were invisible to every sensor the Dominion possessed. They appeared without warning, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before anyone could respond. In the next 6 months, 23 more installations fell. Military bases, supply stations, mining colonies. Each one was destroyed completely. Each one was left with the same message. We remember Seoul. We remember Tokyo. We remember London. The names of Earth's dead cities became the signature of humanity's revenge. Captain Kang Doyan led the ground assaults personally. He and his soldiers would land after the orbital bombardment, hunting down any survivors. They were fast, silent, and absolutely merciless. During the assault on a Valari military base, Doyan found himself face to face with an enemy general. The alien was wounded, crawling through the rubble, trying to reach a weapon. "Please," the general begged. "I have children. I have a family." Doyan looked at him without expression. "So did we." He pulled the trigger. Some of his soldiers questioned these methods. A young woman named Baynari, his best student, approached him after a particularly bloody battle. "Captain, are we becoming as bad as them? The civilians we killed today, they had nothing to do with the bombing." Doyan turned to face her. "When the Dominion bombed Earth, did they spare our civilians? Did they care about our children? Did they hesitate because our families were innocent?" Nari was silent. "They created the rules," Doyan continued. "We are simply playing by them." On the Iron Wake, Admiral Taiho coordinated every attack with cold precision. He never celebrated victories. He never showed emotion. He simply studied the reports, planned the next strike, and watched his enemies die one by one. Dr. Hanjuwu traveled with the fleet, personally overseeing the deployment of the Reaper protocol. The computer virus was devastatingly effective. Enemy ships would suddenly go silent, their crews dying as life support failed. When Dominion investigators boarded the dead vessels, they found bodies frozen in their bunks, their faces twisted in expressions of confusion and terror. The galaxy began to panic. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. Species that had stayed neutral during Earth's bombing now demanded action. "The humans have become terrorists," they cried. "They must be stopped." But stopping them was impossible. No one knew where Earth's survivors were hiding. No one could detect their ships. No one even knew how many of them there were. Counselor Brix stood before the assembly and tried to calm the fear. "This is temporary chaos," he insisted. "The humans are desperate. They are striking blindly. Eventually, they will run out of resources, and we will crush them." He was lying, and everyone knew it, because 3 days earlier, human message had been delivered directly to Brix's personal quarters. No one knew how it got there. No one saw the messenger. The note contained only 2 words: "You're next, back on Earth." General Shin Murray watched the war unfold with grim satisfaction. The first phase was complete. The enemy was afraid. They were starting to turn on each other, blaming one another for provoking humanity's rage. Now, it was time for Phase 2. "Prepare the recordings," she ordered. "I want every species in the Dominion to hear what their leaders decided. I want them to know exactly what was done in their name." The recordings were classified files that humanity had stolen from the Council's own database. Hours of discussions where alien leaders debated the most efficient ways to kill humans. Jokes about pest control, arguments about whether to spare human children, ultimately decided against, because children grow into adults, and adults cause problems. When these recordings were broadcast across the galaxy, the reaction was immediate. Billions of aliens who had never known the truth suddenly learned what their governments had done. Protests erupted on dozens of worlds. The Dominion began to fracture from within. And on the Iron Wake, Admiral Taiho allowed himself the smallest of smiles. "They thought they could murder us and face no consequences," he said quietly. "They thought we would simply disappear." He looked at the tactical display showing the locations of his fleet. 47 ships, spread across the galaxy like invisible predators. Thousands of soldiers ready to strike. Millions of civilians on Earth, waiting for justice. "Phase 2 is complete," he announced. "Begin Phase 3. Target the homeworlds." The war had just begun. The Morvani homeworld was the first to burn. Admiral Park Tai-ho chose it specifically. The Morvani had been the loudest supporters of Earth's destruction. Their representative, Counselor Brix, had called the genocide necessary correction. Their politicians had celebrated in public when the death toll was announced. Now they would learn what correction truly meant. The attack came at dawn. When the Morvani capital was just waking up, 20 Ghost Fleet ships appeared simultaneously around the planet, dropping from stealth mode like nightmares becoming real. The planetary defense system activated immediately failed. Dr. Han. Jiwoo's Reaper protocol had been uploaded into their networks weeks earlier, sleeping quietly until this moment, in 60 seconds. The Morvani lost every orbital defense station. In 10 minutes, their entire military fleet was reduced to floating wreckage. And then the bombardment began. Taiho did not target civilian population centers, not yet. Instead, his ships destroyed every government building, every military base, every police station. They killed the leaders while leaving the people alive. Alive, watching. When the smoke cleared, a single human ship descended to the capital. General Shin Murray herself walked down the ramp, surrounded by soldiers in black armor. The Morvani survivors stared at her in terror. This small, gray-haired human woman who had brought their mighty civilization to its knees. Murray approached a broadcast tower that her soldiers had captured. She activated a galaxy-wide transmission and began to speak. "My name is Shin Murray. I am the leader of Earth's survivors. I am speaking to every species in the Galactic Council." She paused, letting the words sink in across 1,000 worlds. 10 years ago, you voted to allow our extinction. You watched 12 billion people die and called it justice. You celebrated our destruction and then forgot about us. Her voice remained calm, almost gentle, but her eyes burned with cold fire. We did not forget. We remembered every city, every child, every life you took from us. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small vial filled with clear liquid. She held it up to the camera. This is Project Kindred, a biological agent designed specifically for the Morvani species. If I release this into your atmosphere, every Morvani will become sterile within 1 week. Your children will never have children. In 100 years, your species will be extinct. Across the galaxy, billions of aliens watched in horror. The Morvani on their homeworld began to scream and cry. I have similar agents for every species that voted against humanity, Myray continued. The Volari, the Kreth, the Solari, all of you. I can end your civilizations with a single command. She lowered the vial and looked directly into the camera. You wanted us dead? Now your survival depends on our mercy. Think about that. The transmission ended. Chaos erupted across the galaxy. The Galactic Council Station became a battleground of screaming accusations. Species blamed each other for provoking humanity. Old alliances shattered. New enemies were made. Counselor Brix tried to flee the station in a private shuttle. He made it exactly 300 meters before Captain Kong. Doyen's strike team intercepted him. Doyen personally dragged the Morvani Counselor onto the Iron Wake. Brix was thrown at Admiral Taiho's feet, his insect limbs twitching in terror. Do you remember me? Taiho asked quietly. Brix stared up at him with compound eyes full of fear. I was following orders. The council decided? Taiho nodded slowly. Yes. You decided that my wife should burn. You decided that my daughter should die screaming. You decided that 12 billion people were worth less than galactic stability. He crouched down until his face was centimeters from Brix's. You called it not a crime. Do you remember that? Brix's mandibles clicked frantically. Please, I can help you. I have information. I can give you can give me nothing, Taiho interrupted. Everything I want, I am already taking. The Volari Dominion launched a desperate counterattack. Their remaining fleet, over 500 ships, gathered for a final assault on the Ghost Fleet's last known position. It was the largest military action in galactic history. It was also a complete failure. The Ghost Fleet simply vanished. The Volari Armada found nothing but empty space. And while they were searching, Doyen's ground forces were destroying their supply lines. GUS viruses were crashing their communications. Murray's propaganda was turning their own citizens against them. High Commander Vorix, the architect of Earth's bombing, watched his empire crumble from his flagship. His son was dead. His fleets were scattered. His allies were abandoning him. He sent a message directly to Admiral Taiho, requesting a meeting. A negotiation. Perhaps a surrender. Taiho's response was brief. We do not negotiate with those who bomb children. The war continued for 3 more months. By the end, the Volari Dominion had lost 80% of its military capability. The Morvani government had collapsed entirely. 4 other species had sued for peace, offering anything everything to make humanity stop, and still. Taiho did not stop. Dr. Hanjuwu approached him one night on the bridge of the Iron Wake. She found him staring at the stars.
Ow.
As always. The photograph of his wife was in his hand, as always. Admiral, she said quietly, they are surrendering. All of them. The war is over. The war is not over until I say it is over. Chiu hesitated. She had supported this revenge from the beginning. She had created the weapons. She had helped kill millions. But now, looking at Taiho, she saw something that frightened her. If we release Project Kindred, she said carefully, we become exactly what they called us. Monsters. Genocidal savages. Taiho turned to look at her. His eyes were empty holes. They taught us that this is how the galaxy works. Kill or be killed. Destroy or be destroyed. He held up the photograph. This is what their lesson cost me. Now they pay the tuition. Giwu had no response, but General Murray, who had been listening from the doorway, stepped forward. Her old face was lined with exhaustion and something else doubt. "Admiral," she said, "I gave everything for this revenge." But Jiwoo is right. If we use Project Kindred, we destroy not just them, we destroy ourselves. We become the nightmare they always accused us of being. Taiho's jaw tightened. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, he put the photograph away. "Prepare for final assault on the Galactic Council station," he ordered. "We will take their surrender there. And then," he paused, "then we will decide what kind of species we want to be." The fleet moved toward the Council station. The final confrontation was coming. The Galactic Council station was the largest structure ever built. It floated at the center of the galaxy. A massive ring of metal and glass where 200 species had governed the stars for 10,000 years. It was supposed to be eternal, unbreakable, a symbol of galactic civilization. Now it was surrounded by the Ghost Fleet. Admiral Park Taiho stood on the bridge of the Iron Wake. Watching the station through the viewport, thousands of alien ships floated nearby. But none of them moved. None of them fired. They knew what would happen if they tried. "Open a channel to the council chambers," Taiho ordered. The screen flickered to life, showing the great circular room where species had once debated in peace. Now it was filled with terrified aliens. Representatives from every civilization in the galaxy stared at the camera with expressions of pure fear. "This is Admiral Park Taiho of the Human Survival Fleet," he announced. "Your surrender will be accepted in the main chamber in 1 hour. Every representative from every species that participated in Earth's bombing will be present. No exceptions." He ended the transmission before anyone could respond. Captain Kong Doyan assembled the landing team. 500 soldiers in black armor, the best warriors humanity had ever produced. They would accompany the Admiral and General Murray to the Council station. Dr. Hanjuo would come too, carrying the vials of Project Kindred, a reminder of what humanity could do. Provoked again. The shuttle docked without incident. The station's defenders had already surrendered. Thousands of alien soldiers threw down their weapons and stepped aside as the humans marched through the corridors. When Taiho entered the council chamber, every alien representative fell silent. 200 species watched as the small group of humans walked to the center of the room. Taiho's boots echoed against the marble floor. Each step was measured, deliberate. Final, he stopped in front of the council's main podium, the same podium where Counselor Brix had once declared humanity's death justified. Brix was there now, chained between 2 human soldiers. His compound eyes darted around the room, looking for help that would never come. 12 years ago, Taiho began, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "You murdered our world. You killed 12 billion innocent people because you were afraid of what we might become." He paused, letting the silence stretch. "Now you know what we have become? We are your nightmare. We are the consequences of your actions. We are what you created." General Murray stepped forward and placed a datapad on the podium. "These are the terms of your surrender. The Galactic Council is dissolved, effective immediately. A new governing body will be formed with humanity as its head. All species that participated in Earth's bombing will pay reparations for the next 500 years. Your military forces will be reduced to defensive capabilities only. Your colonies outside your home systems will be redistributed." Protests erupted around the chamber. Some representatives shouted in outrage. Others wept. A few tried to argue that the terms were too harsh, that humanity was being unreasonable. Taiho raised his hand, and the room went silent. "You think these terms are harsh?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a vial of clear liquid. "This is Project Kindred. 1 release, and your species ends. Not today, not tomorrow. But within 1 generation, there will be no more of you. Your children will never have children. Your history will end in silence." He held the vial up to the light. "We could use this. We considered it seriously. Many of my people wanted it. After what you did to us, who could blame them?" The aliens stared at the vial in horror. "But we chose mercy instead. Wait. Not because you deserve it. You deserve nothing. We chose mercy because of who we want to be, not because of what you did. He turned to look at Brix. There will be one exception to this mercy. Counselor Brix of the Morvani will stand trial for crimes against humanity. The trial will take place in the ruins of Sol. The verdict is not in question. Brix began to scream and struggle, but the soldiers held him firmly. The surrender was signed 3 hours later. Every representative added their species seal to the document. The Galactic Council, which had ruled for 10,000 years, officially ceased to exist. Humanity had won. But as Captain Doyen watched the ceremonies, he felt no satisfaction. He found General Murray standing alone by a viewport, looking out at the stars. "General," he said quietly, "we did it. We won." Murray did not turn around. "Yes, we won then. Why do you look sad?" She was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was tired. "Before the bombing, humanity dreamed of reaching the stars as friends. We wanted to explore, to discover, to build something wonderful. We believed the universe was full of possibilities." She turned to face him. Her old eyes were full of grief. "Now we rule through fear. We built our victory on the bodies of millions. We became exactly what they always accused us of, being savage, violent, dangerous." Now she shook her head. "We won the war. But what did we lose in the process?" Doyon had no answer. 1 month later, Admiral Taiho stood on the surface of Earth for the first time in 12 years. The planet was slowly healing. The ash was settling. Green things were starting to grow again in some places. He walked through the ruins of Sol until he found the location of his old apartment building. There was nothing left but a crater filled with weeds. This was where Yuna and Somi had died. This was where his heart had stopped. Dr. Hanju found him there, staring at the empty ground. "Admiral," she said softly, "we have a decision to make. Now that we have one, what do we do with our power?" Taiho did not respond for a long time. He just stood there, looking at the place where his family had lived. Finally, he spoke. "When Somi was born, I made her a promise. I promised to protect her. I promised to give her a better future." His voice cracked slightly. "I failed that promise. I couldn't save her." He turned to face Ji Woo. "But maybe I can still keep part of it. Maybe we can still build something better. Not through fear. Not through violence. But through something else." "What?" Taiho looked up at the sky where stars were just becoming visible in the fading light. Somewhere up there, a galaxy waited to see what humanity would do next. "I don't know yet," he admitted. But Murray was right. We can't rule through terror forever. Eventually, we have to become something more than angry survivors. He pulled out the photograph of his wife and daughter one last time. He looked at their smiling faces. Then, slowly, he put it away. "Start the reconstruction programs," he ordered. "Not just for Earth, for everywhere we damaged. Use some of the reparations to rebuild what we destroyed. Show the galaxy that humans can create, not just destroy." Giwu looked surprised. "The people will not understand. They want revenge, not reconciliation. They already have revenge. Now, they need hope." Taiho began walking back toward the shuttle. "We've spent 12 years becoming monsters. Now let's see if we can become something better." Behind him, the sun set over the ruins of Sol, but on the horizon, new lights were appearing, construction equipment working through the night to rebuild. Somewhere in the distance, a child was laughing. The war was over. The hard part, building peace, was just beginning, and humanity forged in fire and hardened by loss would face it together.